Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is Tuesday, May May 9th. How are we already on May 9th? Let me check my Wi-Fi real quick. I think we're gonna have an issue this morning. I hope you all well. I'm Jackie Glass, Mama, Navy vet, certified doer, and the laced up legislator for the House of Delegates, 89th District. What a blessing to see you this morning. What a blessing it is to see you this morning. Um, I'm gonna sort of jump right into it. There's on the other side here. Yeah, let's make and I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge the fact that we've had a variety of, of trauma inflicted on us this week, really en masse. And I thought that I was going to come up here and have some specific policy stuff to talk about. Um, I thought, that that I really did. But truthfully, I am right now at a point where I'm extremely anxious, disturbed, and quite frankly, a little pissed off. Let me go ahead and get the stuff out the way, and I'll tell you why. Saturday, we have Norfolk Can Fly. If you're interested, Norfolk Can Fly it's our second annual Norfolk Can Fly event. We bring in all folks through aviation, about careers, drones. We have folks that are flying in. This is a way to, look at diversity and inclusion in the world of aviation. So it's an all ages event. Come through. It's at Norfolk International Airport. You if you're interested, the Eventbrite, it's on Eventbrite for Norfolk Can Fly 2023. It's also on my Facebook page. There's also on the Instagram. So if you have not gotten the opportunity or you're interested in joining us, come through. Registration is not required. It's just enough for us to get head count. I'd love to have more volunteers. We're still seeking some volunteers to help out for the day. So if you got the time, either come visit, come volunteer. We have a volunteer meeting tomorrow night, which is Wednesday night, I believe at 6, thereabouts. So join us. We'd love to have you there. But that is the center focus of our day. But today I wanted to talk about these mass shootings that are happening that are beyond frustrating. Um, it it doesn't fall deaf on me that we're gonna have to agree to disagree on some things, right? Like it makes sense that we're in a world where people are gonna think and believe differently. I'm trying to see what's over here, what's happening over here. Good morning, Scott. Good morning. Good morning, Shaw. Good morning, Keith. It's a blessing to see you guys this morning. And over on Instagram, we got hi, Sunny. Hey, y'all. Hey, good to see have y'all here this morning. Um, this week, every time I woke up to watch the news, there was something about a mass shooting on it, and um, I am I am not I am not a stranger to gun violence or hearing gunshots. Like, I know that there's a level of trauma that I endure that that is unnatural with regards to gun violence. I know that. I know it's not natural, and I'd love to know how y'all are feeling in the comments. The problem right now is that we people are afraid. I am. I have and I'm starting to have to even in myself being desensitized to this stuff. There's a hefty level of fear uh, because mass shootings are terrifying. They are traumatic. They cause significant harm to people, to families, to communities. Um, they result in death, y'all, and injury physically and emotionally. And can leave and have just by their presence, of being in our world and being on our TVs. Uh, they are leaving psychological scars on survivors, on people's loved ones, and on those that are ingesting it. And I think the fact that we are ingesting this en masse, it has completely eroded our sense of safety and security in public places, which too is leading to anxiety and fear. I think I said this on a live before that I walked up to my son's school the other day to drop off a permission slip. And I had the thing, I thought, like, I hope don't nothing pop off while I'm up in here. I hope don't nothing happen while I'm up in here, right? And that's real. And it really does matter who fixes this. I know that it takes a multifaceted approach involving stakeholders and resources. And I know the issue with solving mass shootings evolves us. It's going to require us to address uh, some underlying societal and cultural factors like access to firearms, which I have plenty of them, mental health support, and also the glorification of violence in media, in pop culture, in gaming, all of these things. It too is going to take us to evaluate law enforcement response, have the prevention strategies. Yes, background checks. Yes, threat assessments. Yes, community interventions, but you can't buy safety. And knowing that I'm a person who has been desensitized to this, I hate that I'm shook. And I don't know how you all are feeling. Like, this is just, I do not, what I do not want us to do is become numb. I do want us to have a space where we are able to push, because I don't know that, I know that there are those out there advocating, educating, advocating, getting wins, Colorado places they're getting wins, and legislating in a meaningful way. But what I also think is that, and I'm checking the comments over here, so Instagram people don't be mad at me. What I also know is that not everything about mass shooting have to do with mental health. While mental health does tend to be a factor in instances of mass shootings, it's not always the case. The causes, again, just like the solution, the causes of mass shootings are complex, they're multifaceted, they involve everything from social, economic, to political factors. And so when I hear folks avoiding the conversation about, like, a sense of avoidance about the conversation about these multifaceted pieces of it, and they want to relegate everything to mental health now because they believe in mental health now, I also think they are mentally unhealthy. Because we know that there are the factors, right? When we look at these factors of mass shootings, they also include firearms themselves, social, cultural attitudes towards violence, social isolation and alienation, things that we have just went, exposure to violence in media and entertainment, and the lack of effective law enforcement prevention strategies, law enforcement and prevention strategies, right? We're holding all of this in our hand, and it's important. It's also important, as I look at these folks who are mentally unhealthy that choose avoidance in holding the multifacetedness of this issue, it's important to note that most people with mental illnesses are not violent. Present company included, even though sometimes I want to choose violence, right? The vast majority of mass shootings are not committed by people with a diagnosed mental illness. We know this, right? But blaming mass shootings solely on mental illness stigmatizes people with mental illness and overlooks the broader social and the structural factors that contribute to all of these tragedies, to which we are all ingesting. And instead of addressing mass shooting, instead, I think addressing these mass shootings, because it's only a matter of time, y'all. Like, Yeah, it became a catch-all word. I'm looking at some of the comments over here. And sorry if you've got comments, go ahead and put them in the chat and I listen. Yeah, it's become this catch-all that, like, if we just say mental health, then that's then that's it, right? That's what it is. It's just it's all of that. Um, that's not the case. That's not the case. And so what I'm hoping that we understand, that addressing this issue, right? Addressing mass shooting, it's still, again, just like I said, I'm going to keep saying this, the comprehensive side of things, because there's no one size fits all. There is none. Sorry, there's none. And the reason why people do it is not a one size fits all. So we have to address the relevant factors by collaborating with people, to include mental health and professionals, to include law enforcement, to include policymakers. But again, I believe that anybody in that gamut, whether it's professionals, law enforcement, or policymakers, that avoid the multifacetedness to include firearms in this conversation, are mentally unhealthy. If this ain't shook you a little bit, I think there's a whole ass problem. I genuinely do, because especially in my work, right? In my work, when I see uh, policymakers failing to address the context of mass shootings, several things come to mind, and I don't know what it comes to mind for you, but when I see it happen, I think about one reason being the very strong influence of the gun lobby, right, and the firearms industry, which have a very significant, and we understand this, have a very significant political power, and can really exert their pressure on lawmakers to resist any sort of measures that would help the issue, right? Like, we can't turn our heads from that. That's real. That's a real strong arm. But I tell you, you guys are more powerful than that. People are. As controversial, I believe also, not only do I think it's the avoidance issue, right? Because again, I'm saying this, I believe that people avoid I believe that people that just say, particularly policymakers that just say this is relegated to mental health, are also mentally unhealthy. I don't know how this sits with people, and they think that it's only it's only one piece. Again, it's multifaceted. I also think that policymakers are often reluctant to talk about um, gun measures uh, because they're controversial in some worlds, right? It has become simply a political issue when it is a societal and cultural issue, and they may be reluctant to take a stand because they believe it's going to alienate segments of their constituents or their political allies, and I can't get with that. I cannot get with that. I'm just watching these faces. The other piece of this, right, when we talk about avoidance, because I've been trying to understand, I personally have been trying to, as I sit with turning on my news this morning, all week, all last week, and then the anxiety that I think I've been feeling going places just for being in the public eye, or just for being an everyday person. I've been trying to understand the avoidance piece, and I don't know what your all's thoughts are, but please drop in the comments if you have any thoughts, comments, whatever. This is just a digestion session, right? And I'll talk about maybe some ways that we can move forward. The other factor that I think in this, the avoidance part of it for folks, is because there are people who actually believe that, that this is all about rights. This is all about freedoms. This is all about the right to bear arms. It's enshrined in the Constitution, right? And policymakers feel like any efforts to regulate access to firearms could be infringing on those rights, and may be hesitant. There's one argument. Right, but we f's with the right to vote like it ain't even funny, right? Like, we f's with that, right? That so again, we're double speaking when it comes to rights. And the last thing, the only other reason why I can believe uh that that people can't address things is because, like me, like maybe uh that approach of just knowing that mass shootings go beyond control, beyond gun control, beyond addressing mental health issues, beyond law enforcement, beyond prevention strategies, can stifle people. Right? It can be stifling, but I also think it's important to note that there has been significant debate. Right? Like we are having these conversations with policymakers, experts, and with the public about the best approach, the best prevention measures, and it is very complex. But again, when it all boils down to it, like something's got to give. We are not able to purchase peace. Um, Research has already suggested that there's a correlation between availability of firearms, let me just say this already, and the incidences of gun violence. There is a correlation. We cannot disconnect those two. Um, and between that, to include gun violence and to include mass shootings, because we're holding two different things in our hand. We know that countries with stricter gun laws, gun control laws, have generally have lower rates of gun related deaths and mass shootings compared to us with these more permissive laws. And it's difficult to say whether reducing the number of guns in circulation will prevent all mass shootings, right? Because I don't believe in speaking in extremes, all, always, never, ever, right? But evidence does suggest, right, from what we've seen, that reducing access to firearms can be an effective strategy, right? Like everybody shouldn't have guns. And if you're sitting here telling me that everybody should have guns, also, I'm going to challenge your mental wellness. So when we talk about strengthening background checks, when we talk about limiting access to high capacity magazines or implementing red flag laws that allow temporarily removal of firearms from Virginians that pose a risk to themselves or others. We're talking about doing the things. But again, it goes back to a comprehensive approach that just goes beyond. It goes beyond limiting access to firearms. It goes beyond mental health. It's important to address, I'll say this again, the social, the cultural, the political factors that contribute to gun violence. Because yes, there are political factors that are contributing to gun violence, such as inequity, social isolation, the glorification of, I'm saying this again. So yes, we can improve mental health, our services, access to mental health services. Yes, we can address the gaps that we have in law enforcement, because I see those as different facets. Yes, we need prevention strategies, but there's also, again, a comprehensive approach. This is just me on my soapbox today, and I apologize for that, but I'm really having a difficult time. I feel very challenged as a mother, as a just a freaking human being living and existing, but also as a policymaker as to where the hell do we go from here, right? Where do we go from here? What is our so what now what? Because we're having this conversation. Elizabeth, I see. So if you have comments, because at about a minute or so, if you have any community events, go ahead and drop them in the comments. I'll share them with everybody here on Instagram and Facebook. If you got it, just go ahead and drop it, and I'll talk about it here in a sec. If you just give me opportunity, I'm checking for comments. Yolanda says accountability is important. I agree with you. I'm going to shift this over here. Y'all, I'm just trying. Accountability is important, right? But that is where, Miss Yolanda, I think that we are going to have we diverge, right, on the accountability piece. And for those of you guys on Instagram, these are comments from Facebook. So if you got comments, go ahead and drop them in the comments. Or words or thoughts. So accountability is super important, but what does that look like? And that's where we diverge. And that's where I go into the idea that the avoidance piece is also mentally unhealthy. It's mentally unhealthy. And I do challenge the mental health of anyone culturally that says that they can relegate this issue to one piece, right? To fix to one piece, because you can't. Elizabeth says it's just easier to put mental health and not deal with the complexity of the issues. Yeah. And what I've seen in the news recently, right, when I look at what's happening on the national stage, and I so understand what's happening within our state, right? Like I get that. I think there are words that we have, that there are options that we have statewide, right? We are a very purple state. We are a very purple state. So there is going to require some consensus, but it does matter. That's why these elections next year, the end of the year, are going to matter. You got to have more people on your team in order to get things going. You've got to have a team across the hall, and then you've got to have an executive team that's willing to work with you. But I just have heard, particularly in the Republican Party on the national stage, whether it's governors or it's federal policymakers, say, "Oh, it's just a mental health thing," and that is false. That is false. It is complex, and it is frustrating because, again, we cannot buy safety. I cannot buy safety for my children, for my mother, for my husband, for myself, for the people in the community that I love and that I care about. Right? This is an erosion. Our incessant need to not address this complexly is an erosion of our safety, our sense of safety. And the thing that we have to understand is that we are all animals, and we will respond to that in kind, right? Instinctively, we will respond to that in kind. And I don't know what that looks like for a society as technologically and as advanced as we are right now. But it is complex. And I'll say this, don't get bogged down. Because you got people like Miss Yolanda who have, and I want to thank you, Miss Yolanda, to being on here, who have found their place and space to advocate. We all have to find these pieces. You have some the city of Norfolk is doing now community prevention strategies, working with people. It's a yes, this and this and this and this, but we cannot relegate this to one piece. Soul Power Chef, Miss Sunny says, "I love you, Jack. I love you and appreciate you. Thank you for this digestion session. We also need to think about the possibility of another economic system. So much is driven by labor and commerce." Absolutely, right? Because so much is driven by labor and commerce, right? That need, especially on, and I'll say especially on the policymaker side, there is a lot of folks that are driven economically, that are economically motivated in all things. It doesn't matter if you lose your life, if your people lose their life, don't matter. You're absolutely right. I appreciate that comment. Elizabeth says, okay, so you have, Elizabeth says, "I have a volunteer event for Latinos in VA. Honestly, I thought about my logistics for that day. So let me know if you go ahead and Tuesday, if your event is before Tuesday, just have the date and the time and stuff for me, and I can share. There should be more events that we have a multicultural city, right? We have a multicultural commonwealth, and it is oh, sorry. She said my comments about the logistics. Yeah, it's out of my comment about my logistics for event is out of fear. Yes, that's real. Like you're trying to. So Elizabeth, what you are Elizabeth on Facebook is commenting saying she has a volunteer event for Latinos, and she's honestly really afraid about her logistics that day. Fear. Again, an erosion. I have to remind you guys, this is an erosion of our sense of safety, and you need to recognize that. We don't know what that looks like en masse. We're starting to see it, right? We're starting to feel it, but I don't know what that looks like for all of us if we don't start making some changes. Yeah, the people could be radically motivated, as she says, like that. There are a lot of reasons, and I choose not to only hold the mental health piece in my hand. I choose for there to be more than just, it is more than just that. So I hear you. Elizabeth in the comments is also saying, she worries about the Latino community precisely with, goodness, my brain is going, with the is it the executive order expiring? I can't remember whether it's an executive order, but about border crossings and folks there. I know that the president was setting up stations in South America to get people to be able to refugees and all these things that are happening with, what was it called, 43? I don't remember what it is. It's expiring, which is going to which was during the pandemic to prevent people from crossing the border, and they en masse believe that there's going to be en masse folks trying to get into America, and that sentiment about others, right? There's a huge, expires Thursday. Thank you, Lamont. 42. Yep, there it is. Y'all are that's because y'all smart, y'all, because y'all smart. All smart and stuff. But yes, it expired Thursday, and there's a real sentiment about othering. You understand that we all know this, we're built on a country that has done a very good job of othering anyone outside of European American. So that's why I'm an American who was born Black. I'm American who was born Black, and that European Americans are also immigrants to this place. And we should have no shame in saying that there are no others here. Many of us were brought here by demand or came here to someone else's space, right? So addressing that, and I don't know how it's been so effective in othering people, but they historically have been, and we're going to shake that up. We're going to shake that up and call it what it is. We got European Americans, we got Hispanic Americans, we got Black Americans, we got Asian American, we Irish American, we got all of that. Okay, so everybody is here from somewhere, but I understand your sentiment. I empathize with your fears. That is the reason why I came here today talking about this, because I just want to acknowledge my fear. I'm going to acknowledge my anxiety and how that is translating into my daily life of watching my children move outside, my little citizens move out and inside the world, looking at my husband go to work, watching my mom go to the library or to the Croc Center, and there's a worry. It's a pitting feeling that I don't have my eyes locked on the people that I love, or that at any rip, this could be it for me. Like, this could be it. It don't take much. It don't take nothing. So we got work to do. And I thank you all for being here with me this morning. And I hope that you sit with your sense of safety, and that we do a better job. We owe it to you, us who signed up. The policy side of things shouldn't even be a thing, right? It shouldn't even be a thing, but it is. So I'm hoping that you guys choose to come to summer school this summer, that we do some amazingly great things, that we provide options and solutions. I want you to be thinking about what matters to you, because now is the time to start reaching out to legislators. Well, I would say early summer is the time to start reaching out to legislators and figuring out what kinds of legislation do you want to see in the 2024 General Assembly. That's important. Thinking about it right now and reaching out. I've already had 2 phone calls and said, hey, we'll wait till the summer, but your message has been received. And so I'll end with Soul Power Shift on Instagram. Since Sunny, it says the reality is that if anyone was really concerned about anyone's mental health, there would be more attention to the quality of our social institutions, well-being, belonging, housing, and healthcare, all of that and more. I couldn't have said it better. Until next time, y'all, I'm Jackie Glass, mama, Navy vet, certified doer. So glad to have y'all up here, certified doers, because we get more done. And your laced up legislator for House of Delegates, 89th District. Wishing you peace and love today. Miss Lamont, I'll get at you about those pictures as well. Be well.